Hey y'all, it's your girl Cassandra with Pecan Porch Boutique. So I'm still on my quest, y'all, to do more smalls. There are a lot of small things laying around in my shop and I'm just trying to get them out of the way. So I bought this little bread box for $1 at a garage sale. And it's plain, it's just a plain little pine box. So I'm going to see if I can give it a French country makeover. And I've never done French country, so you guys are going to have to tell me if you think I hit the mark by the time we get to the end. So here I'm just going over this box with some of DIY's Salvation Solution. It is a primer stain blocker. And, just in case it was in the kitchen and it got grease and stuff on it, I didn't want it to interfere with my paint. So I'm just going to go over the whole box with one coat of this DIY Salvation Solution in white. It also comes in clear. And then I'm going to let it sit for 24 hours. And we're going to go from there. Okay, so the Salvation Solution has sat overnight, and now I'm going to come in with a coat of DIY paint called Crinoline. It's kind of a creamy tannish kind of color, I think. It looks different under the light, but I'm going to go ahead and give it the first coat. I will be giving it 2 coats, but right now I'm just going to get that first coat on and get this Salvation Solution covered up, and then we can move on from there. Okay, now we can get to some of the fun parts, y'all. So this is my first time using DOS clay, and I've had this DOS clay for a long time. I never opened it, so it's still very, very soft. But I don't know, I've never used it. I always use IOD clay, but it seems softer, a little bit not as firm as the IOD clay, but I don't know, I kind of enjoyed working with it. So, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just pull out a hunk of this clay and I'm going to lay it down on my parchment paper, and I have some baking powder down there so it doesn't stick too much. And I'm just going to flatten it out into a shape that I'm going to lay onto the front of my box. Now, if I had to do this again, or when I do it again, the next time I made my shape, I would do it while I have my clay down on the parchment paper. So I would make the shape that I want out of the clay while I have it down on my parchment paper, instead of just rolling it out like I'm doing now. Instead of just flattening it out, I would flatten it out and then create the shape that I wanted. And then my goal is to take this now flattened clay and glue it to the front of my box. But like I said, if I had to do it again, or when I do it again, the next time that I did it, by the time I get ready to glue it to my box, it would already be the shape that I wanted, instead of me having to manipulate it once I get it on the box, which you'll see soon. But anyway, here I am now. I'm just going to use my Titebond. I'm just going to spread it all over the clay. And y'all, I'm going to tell y'all, this is the closest that I'm going to come to baking. I don't roll out things because I don't bake. So this is must be kind of like that, huh? But I do eat baked goods. That I do. Anyway, so once I get my clay all flattened out and my glue all on the back of it, I'm just going to take it now and I am going to just add it to the front of my box. Just a flat piece of clay on the front of my box. And I'm going to go right over the knob of this little bread box because the knob is kind of small. And I didn't want it to kind of get lost as I add molds, which I'm going to be using next. So I'm just going to take the clay right over the knob and kind of shape it into a bigger, a bigger little knob there. And then I'm going to flatten it out, and I'm going to use my roller and use my hand just to kind of knock those air bubbles out and get it all stuck down where I want it. Okay, so now while my clay is still wet, I'm going to take this little lattice piece. This is from IOD's Veranda stamp, and I'm just going to kind of make some imprints all over my clay to give kind of a lattice look. And for the places that I could not get the stamp into, I used my razor, just a razor blade, to kind of continue those little lattice lines. So, but that's what I'm doing here. I'm just taking these, and they have a bigger version of this lattice too on that stamp. But this is the Veranda stamp from IOD. And so I'm just going to kind of take that while the clay is wet and make some imprints into the clay. So you'll see here I'm just kind of fiddling around with it, and then I finally got tired of fiddling around with it because I had it on my mat and it wasn't fitting, and then I pulled it off the mat and then it wasn't stiff enough. So when I finally got tired of all that, I just went and got my razor blade and I just kind of carried the lines manually just by following the ones that were on there. So the first mold that I'm going to be using is IOD's Olive Crest mold. And I'm going to be casting those two floors. That's what I'm going to call them, floors. Those little floors on each side. And then the part in the middle that's kind of like, I don't know, maybe like a little, the little round part in the middle. So that I'm going to be doing 3 castings from this particular mold. So I'm just filling my molds with cornstarch. Most people, no, I'm not using cornstarch. Most people use cornstarch. I'm using baking powder. And then once I get that in there, then I'm just going to press my mold in, take my fingers and take off the excess. And then I kind of like to turn my mold upside down and roll it out. But these little floors, they're kind of delicate. And so I kind of had trouble at the end. So once I got it out, I kind of had to reshape it, but that's okay. So now I'm just going to come back to my clay, and that's on top of my box, and I am just going to kind of map out where I want these 2 particular molds to go. So they will be on top of that Veranda stamp. I'm just going to add a little bit more Titebond glue, and I'm just going to kind of work out my plan for kind of where I want these to go. Okay, so I got both of those two castings on, and now you'll see that I'm taking my razor blade and I am trimming off some of that initial clay, that clay blanket that I put down. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Had I done this, or had I shaped this out the way that I wanted it to be while it was down on my parchment paper, I would not have to do this. So, but now I'm just kind of trying to make it the shape that I want it, and I'm just using my razor blade to kind of trim it off. Another advantage of if I had made it the shape that I wanted to while I had it down on my parchment paper would be that I wouldn't have that glue residue left from trimming it back. But because I'm going to be using other molds, it doesn't matter now. But so I go ahead and I cast that middle part of the olive crest mold, kind of like a little label. That's what I'm going to be kind of using it as. And so I'm going to put that right underneath the knob on the box, center it there. And this is the Felicity mold. That's one of the molds that I'm going to be using. And then I'm going to be using that trim from this mold, which is the primitive mold. And I'm going to be adding that trim, as you can see now. I went ahead and I added it around my clay blanket shape. And now I'm just putting glue on the back of the Felicity mold. And I'm going to be adding those all along the side of that little clay shape that I put there. Now, the Felicity mold is one of IOD's newest molds that they created, and it's very deep. So it's really detailed, and it kind of gives your piece this 3D effect, and I really like using it. It's kind of different flowers, roses, and I can't identify the other flowers, but they're with the leaves, and it's just such great detail. I haven't yet used it with resin, but with the clay, it is such great detail. So I'm just going to try to find placement where I can get them on each side of the clay the clay shape that I already have on there. So that's what I'm doing now. And again, so it didn't matter that I had to trim this off and leave that clay and leave that glue residue there, because now I'm kind of covering it up with other molds. With all of my molds in place now, and I did add a couple molds at the top corner also of this little bread box. But now I'm going to be using IOD's inlay called Spring Melody. This is a sheet from that inlay, and I'm just going to split it right down the center, and I'll be using half of it on top and half of it on the door on the inside of the box. So I'm going to be using the DIY's liquid patina to adhere this. I meant to use paint, and I don't know, somehow I just reached for the liquid patina. So I used liquid patina to lay it down on the top, and I used paint to lay it down on the lid on the inside, and actually not the lid, the door on the inside, and actually the liquid patina turned out better, which you'll see later. But anyway, so I'm just going to cut around those little molds that I put on the top, and then I am going to just take my liquid patina, making sure the grid side of the inlay is facing me. I'm going to take my liquid patina and just press it down into that, and then spritz some water on top of it and press it down a little bit more. And if you're using a water-based top coat, you don't want to let it sit too long. So I typically just let mine dry to touch if I'm using that top coat, and then I just peel it back off. With paint, you can leave it longer because that's kind of really what the inlays are made for, to put into paint. But anyway, it's your choice on which one you want to use. And so now I'm just gonna you see I spritzed it with water already, and now I'm just kind of pressing it down more into that top coat. the inside of this box, I gave it a soft pop of color with a DIY's petticoat pink. And here I am, I'm just going to add another layer of the petticoat pink on the door or the inside of the door to the box. And that is where I'm going to lay in my other half of the inlay. But as you'll see, when I peel it back, I didn't get a very good imprint in the paint. And I think the reason is because I was kind of trying to time peeling it off the paint at the same time I was peeling it off of the top coat. In other words, with the top coat, I have to peel it off faster than you do with paint. And so I think I peeled it off too soon and I did not get a good imprint. And I also think that I did not put down enough paint. But at any rate, I'm just going to go with it, y'all, because that's how I roll. You know, I don't do perfect. So here I am. I'm just spritzing it with water, pressing it into my paint, and then I'm going to start peeling it back. And you can see on the top, I got a really good imprint in the liquid patina. Not so good in the paint, but again, that's okay. It's all good, y'all. So for the size of the box, I'm going to change it up again, y'all. Y'all know how I like to, kind of scramble things up. So I'm going to be using a sheet from the Lattice Rose inlay by IOD. So I'm just going to kind of trim out the shape of the side, and then I'm just going to, this time I'm just going to, since I had such good luck last time, I'm going to lay it into liquid patina again. So I trimmed out my shape, and I'm going to tell y'all, if y'all are trimming out your shape, you want to shape your inlay to something, make sure you cut it with the grid side facing you, not with the paint side, because then it won't fit when you flip it over. I learned that lesson. Anyway, here I am again laying down my liquid patina, and then I'm just going to lay down my cutout shape that fits the side of my box, and I am just going to press it in, and then I'm going to spritz it with a little water, and then I'm going to press it in again. And again, I'm only going to let it dry to touch. It's dry now, so I'm going to spritz it again, and then I'm just going to peel it off, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, I always like to add a little bit of typography onto my piece if I can. And so I'm going to be using IOD's Home Sweet Home transfer. This is the cutest transfer, y'all. It kind of has all of the things that you would add to kitchen items. And so I flipped through the book, and at the very last page, it had Bon Appetit, which is French. And so I thought, okay, well, since I'm trying to go French country, let's do some French typography. So I'm going to cut out this particular Bon Appetit, and I'm going to place it at the very top of the box. And so I have not sealed the top of this inlay or top of this box yet, where the inlay is. And so I'm just kind of hoping that this goes on pretty easily. And it did. But typically, transfers like to go on sealed surfaces. They are very good at going on sealed surfaces. Although I see people all the time that put them on unsealed surfaces. But I typically like to seal the surface before I put it on. And so here I am. I'm just going to lay it down here, do a little bit of a test, and it seems to be working. It seems to be coming off easily. So I'm just going to go ahead with my transfer stick, and I'm just going to carefully pull it back and press down. That's kind of how I like to do my transfers. I kind of hold up the vinyl and press down as I am holding it up. And then I'm just going to take that same vinyl and I'm just going to burnish it in. And basically burnishing just means that I'm just going to rub it in just to make sure it is down securely. All right, so now that my clay is all dry, my molds are all set up, I am going to come back in over the top with that same crinoline color that was my base color. And I'm just going to color all of the molds with that color. And I guess now would be a good time to say that if you're interested in any of the products that I used in my video today, you can find them on my website at www.pecanporchboutique.com. Now I'm going to come back in with liquid patina again, and I'm going to seal up all of the molds, all of the sides. This entire box now is going to get a coat of liquid patina to seal it up. But I want to make sure that I get it all over the molds on the front of the box so that my next step will go smoothly. So I found this little transfer that might have been a part of a bigger transfer, but it came off of IOD's traditional pots transfer, and it just says 1918. And so I'm just going to put that right here on this little label in the middle, just to kind of give it a little bit of character as well. Now that the clay is dry and I've already sealed it, so it's just going to kind of be the same process. I can now transfer onto it, and this transfer is very tiny, so I'm kind of having to be a little bit more delicate just to make sure I am able to get every little piece of it, because I don't have much to work with. But it's coming off fine. I'm just going to go ahead just like I would any other transfer. Once I get it down, I'll take the vinyl and I'll just kind of burnish it in. Okay, y'all, we are almost to the finish line. I am going to use now some of DIY's liquid patina. This is the Dark and Decrepit liquid patina, and it's kind of a brown, and I'm going to kind of use it like a glaze. So because I have already sealed this piece, it allows me to put the Dark and Decrepit down and kind of manipulate it a little bit, because dark and decrepit does dry really fast. So you'll see me here, I'm just going to work it into all of those molds in and around. I'm going to spritz it with water, and I'm going to use my baby wipe to kind of make sure that it doesn't get too dark in the places that I don't want it. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to put it on, get it in all those crevices and cracks, and then take my baby wipe, sometimes using my mister, and I'm going to just kind of wipe it back. And I'm doing this just to kind of add a little bit of an aged look on the front, and just to kind of make those molds really stand out a little bit more before I put the paint on. And because I sealed it before, I can really control the grunginess of it, so that if it's too dark in one place, I can just spritz it with a little water, take my baby wipe, and take some of that back. So I can kind of go back and forth until I get it the way that I really want it to look. Okay, so once I've aged it up to my liking, I'm just going to kind of come back over now that grungy look, and I am just going to, with a dry brush, with my base coat of crinoline, I'm just going to kind of dry brush it a little bit over that to kind of knock back some of that grunge from the tops, and so that it now really does just sit down into those cracks and into those crevices. Okay, y'all, the last stop on this $1 French Country Breadbox makeover is to add a little bit of color to my flowers. So that's what I'm doing here. I just took my little plastic tray, added a couple of colors, and with a little fine brush, I'm just gonna kind of go in now and give my flowers some life. So that's what I'm doing, and I am working on this as the last step before the big reveal. So y'all gonna have to tell me in the end if you think I hit the French Country mark on my first project. If you didn't, that's okay. I can take criticism too, but I'll just keep working at it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I always appreciate those of you who watch, those of you who give me a thumbs up, those of you who leave me a comment, and those of you who subscribe to my channel. It's all very much appreciated. So let's take a quick look back. This is what it looked like before, And this is where we are now, y'all. I'm personally proud of myself, my first French Country project. So thank you all again. I would appreciate your follow. And until then, don't forget to bud, bloom, and be unique.